Why are they so arrogant? You're the first infidel I've seen in years. See, the women of ISIS are just being defiant in the face of defeat. It's the last stronghold of ISIS, and they're completely destroyed, and they're at the mercy of the infidels. So guys, this is GN Guy. If you like my content, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. So, this happened. The ISIS just lost its territory, and its women and children are in the mercy of the infidels, the people who they wanted to fight. So, the woman's face was hidden in the mask behind her veil, and her voice was full of defiance and pride for the caliphate she had left just hours before. "You're the first infidel I've seen in 4 years," Hamza said in a telegraph approach. You can see the same arrogance and defiance in the Bethel Green girl that went over and fought for ISIS. Well, she supported ISIS. I don't know if she fought. She gestured back towards Baghouz, the village of eastern Syria that is now the last fragment of ISIS. The brothers are lions. They will fight on. He said, "The Islamic State remains. We are weak now, but we will come back again." You don't underestimate your enemy, but this is just a level of defiance that I find comical. They're pathetic at this moment. They've lost credibility with this crazy caliphate experiment they've done. They've lost it, and they're going to lose, and they're not going to garner any sympathy from anyone. They're not going to garner any sympathy from normies. Actually, see, most people that do delve into ISIS, that know their ideology, that understand how they work, they're not the vast majority of people. Normal people just go home, work, eat, sleep, and want to go on vacation. They don't really care. When it's in the news, they focus on it, but they don't pay too much attention to it. They go to the next hot button issue that pops up. They follow the news cycle. They're sheep. But let's take a moment to understand what these people are doing. They lost the war, and they're gonna, and like I said, don't underestimate your enemies. They're gonna disperse, and they're going to try again. They're gonna keep trying, and they're gonna keep losing. And unfortunately, they're gonna lose. A lot of people are gonna lose their lives in that event. You're not gonna win a war against these people by just killing them. They're gonna come back with more propaganda. The 21-year-old was one of hundreds of bedraggled women who emerged from Baghouz in recent years. They waited for the huddled masses in the clearing surrender of Kurdish fighters and Syrian democratic forces. Mothers clutched dirty blankets and tugged suitcases through the mud while trying to lose track of their exhausted children. A woman lifted her black baya to defecate in the field. That is pathetic. They were shouting at families shoving past each other in the trucks and would take to the north the refugee camp. These were among the final citizens of the Islamic State, the last people that lived in the jihadist failed experiment of an empire. The SDF now estimated that 5,000 civilians and 1,500 fighters remain in Baghouz, and you originally thought that the faction of the 8 million people who once lived under jihadist black banner. Even in the 4 hour of humiliation and defeat, most women still burned with fanaticism powered the Islamic State in the last 5 years. They offered no remorse for the caliphate's crimes and vowed it would one day again return. This is why you need to not only destroy them utterly, just like Matt has said, just a war for annihilation. Don't let them come back. The promise of Muhammad, a 37-year-old from the nearby town of Al-Bukamal. Like most ISIL women, she identified herself in her Arabic nickname, meaning Mother of Muhammad. When the oldest son's name was, he's dead now. He was killed defending Al-Bukamal, and she said, while the second son cut down in the town of Susa. Her 5 remaining children are huddled among her feet, and her eyes wide and her faces caked with dirt. Was it worth losing 2 sons in a battle subjecting her and other to the horrors of war? We stayed in the Islamic State because we want heaven, and we buy heaven with our souls and our children's souls, he said. God didn't create us for this life. He created for the next. Here's the thing with the Islamic extremists. They believe this life that you're living right now, that this is a dream, and the next life is the actual life, the afterlife, that is. And what you do in this life will determine what you get in the afterlife. In between dense paragraphs of religious dogma and venomous condemnations of Shia Muslim, Muhammad offered a glimpse of situation inside Baghouz. She said her family had been living in a tent made out of rags for 2 weeks. Our tents are like palaces because they were in the Islamic State, she said. She said that it was a shortage of food, but also the poor families were unable to pay for high prices that come with the siege economy. ISIL fighters are distributing some food, but it was not enough. Without phones or internet access, they had little sense of scale. ISIS collapsed. They knew only that the Western warplanes were overhead all night and day. She spoke. Female Kurdish fighters surged throughout the folds of ISIL woman's abaya. The jihadist's wife stood patiently as a young woman in a colorful scarf checked her. As she spoke, female Kurdish fighters surged through the folds of an ISIL woman's abaya. The jihadist's wife stood patiently as a young woman in a colorful scarf checked her. As far as the Kurds knew, any one of these women could be a suicide bomber. ISIL had no qualms of using young women and children in attacks. None of these people had been searched for explosive vests before they reached the SDF lines. The frantic hours it took to load the ISIL families into trucks passed without incident under the watchful eyes of the Kurdish fighters. A column of American special forces drove past. The bearded commandos peered through the windows. People of Baghouz. There were moments where the women certainly seemed to crack. One mother said the ISIL fighters had promised them the UN would be waiting to receive them once they came out of Baghouz. Said they found the Kurdish conquerors and waiting journalists. But she insisted that ISIL has not misled her. There is no betrayal in the Islamic State. These people are brainwashed. These people do not know what's going on. And I feel kind of sorry for them, but the woman said that ISIL had ordered them to go part in deals struck between the jihadists and the SDF. The understanding was that terms were murky, and some suggest that SDF agreed to let them out in return for ISIL releasing Kurdish prisoners. The SDF strongly denied that there were any deal. They said they were welcome civilians out of Baghouz. We're fighting terror group. Either they surrender or they fight and die, said Adima Freen, an SDF commander. The woman said exactly in the interim that she remained ISIL fighters were heavily armed and prepared to launch suicide bombers to defend Baghouz. The brothers have everything and they already always. Even the women are carrying guns and they're ready to be suicide bombers, one said. SDF commandos have been shocked at how many women and children are emerging from the tiny pocket of ISIL territories that originally expected around 1,500 civilians. Instead, 5,000 came out. The large number of civilians have made it difficult for SDF to call an airstrike and likely confirmed that predictors of quick victory made by Donald Trump and the others. Commander Afrin said that it's impossible to predict how long the operation would take. It's inevitable, though. While most of these women have continued to proclaim their loyalty to ISIS, a few began this familiar routine of claiming they had nothing to do with jihadis. Muhammad has said advice to young women, said, "Everyone here is from the Islamic State. Every one of us," he said. "Anyone who stays there not is a liar." And that kind of harkens back to Samina Begum and these women that want to come back to the UK and the US, these 150 jihadi brides. You should not come back. And if you do, you should be tried for treason. You goddamn traitors. So guys, if you like my content, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to PewDiePie.